You have no idea what you've created inside yourself. Not a monster, not a hero, something far more dangerous. Something that slips through the cracks of definition. An entity that no language can fully describe, no system can contain. You've become the quiet heretic in a world addicted to noise. You've learned to live without needing anyone. And to a society built on dependence, that is the ultimate act of rebellion. They call it detachment. You call it freedom. You've spent too much time alone and now they can't read you anymore. They confuse your stillness for emptiness, your silence for absence. But silence, when mastered, is not absence. It is strategy. It is the blade you keep hidden under the calm of your breath. While they shout for validation, you study the room. While they pose for applause, you plan the unseen. You've realized something they never will, that noise doesn't equal power, and visibility doesn't equal strength. The loud are rarely dangerous. They reveal themselves too soon. The real threat moves unseen, without rhythm, without sound. The one who observes longer than others can strike before anyone even knows a battle has begun. You've learned to become that presence, the observer who gathers everything, speaks rarely, and acts only when the air is thick with ignorance. They think the loudest voice wins. But you've seen through that illusion. The loud reveal their weakness every time they open their mouths. The silent build cathedrals in the dark. You've become patient, surgical. Your words, when they finally arrive, cut through pretense like a blade through silk. Because you know truth doesn't scream, it whispers. And those who can hear it rule those who can't. You've watched people expose themselves through contradictions, laughter, small hesitations. You no longer listen to what they say. You listen to what they avoid. That's where the truth hides, in omissions, in the space between words. So you wait, you observe, and when they finally reveal themselves, you strike without noise, without hesitation, without warning. Your power was not built in comfort. It was forged in isolation. They fear solitude because it forces them to meet themselves. But you made solitude your teacher. You fought wars in the dark corners of your mind that no one will ever know about. You've argued with your own demons, reasoned with your own shadows. You've been broken, reshaped, and reforged. You didn't come out softer. You came out cleaner, sharper, more precise. Solitude didn't make you lonely. It made you lethal. While they run toward distraction, you've learned the art of stillness. You studied human behavior like a surgeon studies anatomy. You can see their triggers before they act, their insecurities before they speak, their pride before they fail. You don't guess, you know. You've stopped believing in the masks people wear. You've seen how the kindest smiles hide the sharpest envy, how the loudest virtue signals conceal the weakest morals. You no longer fall for words. You analyze patterns. You no longer chase connection. You select it with intent, like a general choosing his allies. You know now, a mediocre ally is more dangerous than a declared enemy. A friend who drains your clarity is worse than an opponent who reveals your strength. So you've stopped convincing. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped begging people to stay. Dragging the unwilling is the slowest suicide. You let them go. You learned that loneliness among the wrong crowd is worse than solitude among ghosts. Now you guard your energy like a kingdom. You've learned that not everyone deserves access. The world celebrates exposure, but you learned its opposite, the devastating strength of invisibility. While they seek the spotlight, you move behind it. While they obsess over credit, you focus on control. They want recognition. You want dominion. They want to be noticed. You want to be remembered, not for noise but for inevitability. Because the most powerful appearance is the one no one expected. You've stopped broadcasting your process. You no longer announce your plans. You've learned that the deadliest strike is the one that arrives in silence. Solitude was not your exile. It was your training ground. The silence didn't mute you. It purified you. You emerged from it like steel from fire, unbreakable, unbending, unbothered. You've built something inside that cannot be bought, influenced, or manipulated. Independence, not the kind they sell in slogans, the kind that makes you untouchable. Because the one who needs nothing cannot be owned. The one who doesn't beg for attention cannot be controlled. And nothing terrifies them more than a person who cannot be swayed by applause or guilt. They look at you and think you were always this composed. They don't see the nights you drowned in self-doubt, the mornings you rebuilt from ashes, the silent wars you fought just to remain standing. They think you are distant. But they don't realize that unreadability is your armor, because the moment they can read you, they can use you. So you become unreadable by design. Your calm confuses them. Your restraint terrifies them. They don't know if you're plotting or resting, advancing or retreating, and that uncertainty becomes your defense. You let them wonder. You let them assume. You let them miscalculate. While they guess, you prepare. While they react, you anticipate. You've learned that mystery is not a trait. It's a weapon. They label you cold, distant, detached. Let them. Labels are the tools of the weak. They need to name what they can't understand to feel safe. But you're past needing their understanding. You've stopped playing their game of reaction and validation. You no longer feed their narratives with your participation. You starve their assumptions with silence. And when they realize they can no longer control you, they call you cruel. But your silence is not cruelty. It's control. Freedom has a cost and you've paid it. The price was patience. The price was not being understood. The price was being misread and misjudged. But the reward, clarity, is worth every scar. You've learned that explaining yourself is surrender. Every explanation is a map to your vulnerabilities. You give them coordinates to your defenses. So now you reveal nothing. You no longer prove, you no longer justify. You act. Quietly. Strategically. With precision that confuses those who rely on chaos to feel alive. You've learned to chain your ego, to make it serve you instead of sabotage you. The ego wants applause, attention, validation. You feed it just enough to keep it tamed, never enough to let it drive. You've turned it into fuel, not a compass. You no longer need to show off. You no longer crave to be seen. You've become addicted to results, not recognition. That's the shift, the birth of strategic patience. The world screams about speed, urgency, constant motion. But you've learned that the one who moves in silence moves longest. The one who waits for the right moment controls the battlefield. The loud make noise. The wise make moves. You've seen dreamers destroy their own ideas by announcing them too soon. You've seen ambition die under the weight of exposure. So you stopped sharing your plans before they were ready. You let your work speak when it's finished, not while it's forming. Because in a world of endless noise, the one who speaks last has the final word. While they seek to appear consistent, you seek to remain unpredictable. You don't reveal the architecture until the empire already stands. Now you no longer fight every battle. You don't respond to every challenge. You don't defend your name in every argument. Because you've realized that those who must defend everything lose the energy to build anything. The one who fights every war becomes a slave to conflict. The one who chooses his wars becomes a master of time. You've learned that being above noise is not arrogance, it's strategy. You don't move for emotion, you move for outcome. You don't chase insult, you pursue impact. Solitude is no longer your weakness, it's your command post. You see everything from above. The terrain, the traps, the movement of those still blinded by urgency. You act like a sniper, patient, invisible, waiting for the perfect alignment. You let them exhaust their energy in displays of relevance while you stay still, calculating. Then, when their guard drops, when they've burned their strength, you strike once, and the war ends before they even realize it began. Power, you learned, is not domination, it's discretion. It's knowing when to act and when to vanish. If you are always visible, you become predictable. If you are always asserting power, you are draining it. True power lives in restraint, in silence, in the moments when you could speak, but choose not to. While they burn themselves out trying to be seen, you build quietly until your existence becomes undeniable. They chase momentum. You chase inevitability. They want to matter now. You are willing to matter forever. That is the difference. And by the time they notice, the game is already over. You've stopped living at the pace of reaction. You now move at the rhythm of design. They act out of emotion. You act out of calculation. They fear stillness. You thrive in it. They drown in chaos. You drink from it. Because you've discovered what Machiavelli meant when he said, "It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret." But you've refined it further. You act, and never need to repent, because every move is planned. Every silence is part of the strategy. You've become the stillness they mistake for weakness. But stillness is not the absence of motion. It's the preparation for perfect execution. And now they no longer know what you are. A threat, a ghost, a student of power itself? Let them guess. Because in their confusion lies your command. You no longer need witnesses to confirm your existence. You no longer crave eyes to remind you that you are real. You exist, and that is enough. Because you've seen the truth. The world doesn't reward noise. It rewards precision. It rewards those who wait in the dark, sharpening their intent until the light itself bends to their will. You are no longer building for recognition. You are constructing inevitability. What you're building cannot be replicated because it was not born in applause but in silence, not crafted by opinion but by endurance. And when it finally emerges, it will not need validation. It will speak with the quiet authority of inevitability. When it arrives, the world will stop pretending it didn't see it coming. They will understand it too late, that silence was never your weakness. It was your weapon. But this is where the danger begins. Not for you, for them. Because when a person no longer seeks to dominate, their existence becomes the ultimate disturbance. You are not chasing power, yet you radiate it. You are not seeking followers, yet they orbit you. Because your freedom becomes a mirror. Your detachment exposes their dependence. Your calm becomes their chaos. They see in you what they could have been, and what they'll never have the courage to become. You are proof that they could have escaped, and that is why they resent you. Your stillness indicts their restlessness. Your focus humiliates their distraction. You've crossed the bridge they're too afraid to burn, the one that leads away from comfort. You have severed ties with mediocrity, with performance, with the endless marketplace of attention. You've stopped auditioning for belonging. You've withdrawn from the rituals of validation that define the herd. You no longer orbit their expectations. You've become your own axis. They can no longer seduce you with flattery or bind you with guilt. They can't manipulate you with guilt because you owe no one your peace. You've left their economy of approval, where people trade their authenticity for applause. You are done negotiating your worth. That contract has expired. Now you are unclassifiable. You are not the loud one. You are not the kind one. You are not the villain. You are the unknown variable in their equation. You are the question they can't answer, the silence they can't fill. That uncertainty is your throne, because they cannot predict what they cannot categorize, and they cannot control what they cannot define. Solitude, once your perceived flaw, has become your strategic advantage. You control access to yourself. You decide who gets to see, who gets to hear, who gets to know. You understand that mystery multiplies value. Scarcity breeds demand. The less they see of you, the more they feel your presence. The rarer your appearance, the greater your weight. They try to be everywhere, in every conversation, every trend, every argument. But in their overexposure, they dissolve into irrelevance. You do the opposite. You vanish until necessary. And when you return, the atmosphere changes. Not because you demand it, because you've earned it. Your presence now carries gravity. You have become the embodiment of scarcity, and with it, the living law of mystery. Mystery is your shield, and it is your blade. It protects you from intrusion, and it compels their curiosity. They attempt to decode your motives, to predict your moves, to make sense of your restraint. But they fail, because you've made unreadability your craft. Mystery dies the moment it is explained, and so, you never explain. You do not justify. You do not elaborate. Even the loyal must earn your transparency. Even the trusted must pass the test of silence. You reveal nothing by accident. Every word, every gesture, every silence is an act of will. You learned that explanation is surrender. To explain is to hand over power. So you reveal only what strengthens your position, never what exposes it. And as your solitude evolves, you ascend. You no longer isolate to escape. You isolate to command. From this higher ground, you see the battlefield clearly. You see movements before they happen, traps before they're set, weaknesses before they're exposed. You act not because you crave victory, but because you've already calculated it. You play for the war, not the applause of the crowd. You've learned that the most powerful position is not to be everywhere. It is to be unseen until your presence is unavoidable. You move like a storm that forgets it's a storm, silent, invisible, gathering force until the moment comes to break the sky. You let them think you're gone. You let them grow comfortable in your absence. And when you strike, it's not vengeance. It's precision. It's the natural conclusion of patience. You don't fight out of emotion. You act out of inevitability. By the time they notice, it's already too late. This is mastery, not motion, but timing. The world worships speed. You've learned to worship alignment. You don't obey clocks. You control them. You've become fluent in the long game, the slow burn that melts impatience into ashes. Your mind, trained in silence, now functions like an intelligence network. You collect data invisibly. You analyze patterns. You predict outcomes before they unfold. While they chase opportunities, you design inevitabilities. While they panic in uncertainty, you navigate through it like a surgeon through chaos. You no longer need to move fast, because you've realized that time itself works for the patient. The impatient drown in it. You surf it. You let time filter the weak, expose the false, destroy the unstable, while you remain steady as a blade in its sheath. And through this patience, you've gained the most understated power of all, the power to ignore. You've stopped fighting battles that do not matter. You've stopped entering every argument that invites you. You've stopped taking every bait dressed as opportunity. Because you've learned that not all victories are worth the cost. Some are traps that demand your focus, your energy, your composure. You don't win them, you lose yourself in them. So now you let them pass. You've realized that refusal is a form of dominance, that walking away from noise is not weakness, but command. The enemy who cannot tempt you has already lost control. You no longer treat power like a trophy. You treat it like a tool. It is not emotional to you anymore. You use it when necessary. You don't need to prove power. You apply it. You don't display control. You exercise it. You don't measure success by the reaction of others, only by alignment with your mission. You've learned to ask one question before every move. Does this serve the mission? If not, it dies where it stands. And when power becomes a tool rather than a theater, you step into a domain most never reach. You no longer depend on luck or praise or momentum. You depend only on preparation. And your preparation happens in the dark, where there are no witnesses, no applause, no reassurance. That is where the architects of empires are made. Now you've become something rare, an enigma with precision, a ghost with intention. You do not move for validation. You move for transformation. You glide through chaos, leaving only outcomes behind. You've become what Machiavelli described as a prince who learns how not to be good, meaning not moral in performance, but effective in design. Because goodness without strategy is weakness disguised as virtue, and you have no use for virtue that bows to approval. You never wanted to be the villain. You never wanted the crown. You wanted peace through control, clarity through discipline, freedom through restraint. And that alone makes you unpredictable, because nothing can be threatened when it desires nothing from the world. You no longer compete with others. You compete only with your last version. Every day you refine, sharpen, subtract. In a world addicted to addition, you have mastered the art of removal, of cutting away the unnecessary until only precision remains. You've become the counterpoint to everything around you. In a world obsessed with being seen, you move unseen. In a culture that mistakes volume for strength, you operate through silence, and that silence becomes contagious. People feel it before they understand it. You've become the quiet reminder of what they could be if they were willing to pay the price. You've burned the bridge to approval. You've killed the need to be understood. You've stopped offering your pieces as discounts to buy comfort. And in that renunciation, you gained the ultimate leverage, control over your access. Not everyone gets to reach you. Not everyone gets to see you. Not everyone deserves your time. And this scarcity makes your presence priceless. The law of supply applies to kings as much as to commodities. You are no longer common. You are not constantly available. That is why you are never forgotten. They fill the room with noise. You haunt it with silence. They flood the stage. You own the shadows. They confuse absence for irrelevance. But you understand the truth. Silence is never empty. It's full of potential. It's the sound of power preparing. Because when you finally move, the game shifts. Not with spectacle, not with noise, but with outcome. You no longer play to win the crowd. You play to redesign the board. You no longer shout your dominance. You demonstrate it through inevitability. This is not arrogance. This is design. Power that needs to prove itself is still immature. True power simply is. And now you've reached the highest level, the vanishing point, the level where you no longer battle others or even yourself. You stop negotiating with fear, stop debating with doubt. You stop needing permission from the ghosts of your past. You become both observer and executor, detached, clear, unstoppable. You realize life isn't a journey you're walking through. It's a board you're building. You are both the architect and the piece. You are the designer of the battlefield and the last one standing upon it. At this level, mastery doesn't announce itself. It breathes. You don't seek opportunities. You create them. You don't wait for the door to open. You build the door, set the frame, and choose when it swings. You no longer react to life. You orchestrate it. That is the final transformation. The disappearance of the seeker. The birth of the strategist. The metamorphosis from human noise into pure design. And once you reach that place, solitude reveals its final truth. It was never isolation. It was initiation. It didn't separate you from the world. It handed you the blueprint to rewrite it. You have become the architect of your own fate, the silent designer of consequence. You no longer move with time. Time moves with you. You are not part of the storm. You are its pattern. And now the next lesson begins.